What's up, dog?
What's up, what's up, what's up?
So we still don't have a name.
A
Please
week down the road, a week down the road and
keep the
still no
names
name.
coming. Keep the names coming. Again, my name is Brandon,
I'm James.
Leanne here.
and we are here to talk about everything about dogs. Today, we're going to talk about our journey on training dogs. So we have three different aspects of training. Leanne more in show, James who's transitioned from pet to working line or working group, yeah,
Yeah, I guess you could
and
say.
myself in IGP and search and rescue. Let's begin with the typical and the most known training would be pet lah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, first
So
things first,
yeah,
caveat. I think I'm no certified trainer. I
yep.
won't hold myself out as any expert, but um, I think like many Malaysians, my journey of dog training and offline, I was just having a chat with Diane about this. Many of our impressions on dog ownership, on dog training, is serious. A large part of it is handed down by our parents, our friends, and the culture around dog ownership. So I started off believing that. No, sorry, I'm starting off the wrong note. So I started off owning quite a lot of dogs. I think about 5 to 8 dogs, and a lot of my obsession is about controlling the dog or making sure the dog knows that I'm the boss. Um, and I'm starting off so wrong. Wait, you need to cut all this part out.
Yeah, we're keeping that.
so 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 I want to be very careful with what I say here because 90% or maybe even more of Malaysians train a dog in a particular way, um, and it needs to be acknowledged that it is suitable for 90% of the owners in Malaysia. Um, if I have a Rottweiler, and I don't intend to compete in any sport, be it show or work, I don't want a Rottweiler barking and ready to go at 2 a.m. like every day, like come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. That's going to drive my whole family and my neighbors nuts. So I think, at least in Malaysia, there's a current way that's widespread method of training, and to be fair, that method works. And that was the method I started on, which is very compulsion based. My journey of training was very much focused on making sure that the dog knows I'm the boss, right? And I say sit, doesn't matter if it takes you 10 minutes, you're going to sit in the end and I win. Um, and I think if anyone had walked into my house anytime from 2 years back and beyond, you would see highly controlled dogs. And I was very proud of it. I could bring my dog to a dog park. There could be 15 dogs running around. I could have dogs biting on, and true story, like I had an American bully named Yogi, and I'll bring him to Desa Park City, and dogs be, biting him on his lips and his face and putting him on his tail, and he knows that when I look at him and he looks at me, he knows he's not supposed to react.
So he'll be the type that he's walking on a loose leash, walking behind you.
Walking behind me, never ahead of me. It would be unthinkable to have any of my dogs walking behind me. I would bring 2, 3 of my dogs off leash onto a trail run, and I would never ever allow my dogs to walk behind me.
So how would you start off for those who have just gotten a dog or puppy or whatever? How would you have started them to not walk in front of you, or
So
even just obey whatever you are saying?
So it's probably a bit too quick and too deep to jump into the 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. But simply put, it was positive punishment. We were adding something that the dog didn't like a correction, a pop on the collar, a verbal correction. Um, I was adding in something that the dog didn't like whenever it did something that I didn't like, and as a result, the dog who's always trying to better his situation would then figure out that shit, I don't want to do that again because if I did it, then I'm going to get another pop, right? And and I think dogs learn very quickly from their relationship with us that dude don't like when I step one neck ahead of him, and he's going to correct me. So I'm always going to stay behind. When I'm behind him and I see his butt, nothing ever happens, right? So and like with all honesty, I was so proud of myself and my dogs and what I was able to accomplish, because I could bring an American Bully and a Rottweiler out to the park and it was completely under control, off leash. I was never afraid, never imaginable that my dog would run off into the road or onto the road, go off with someone else's dogs and bite someone else's dogs or someone else.
Yeah,
my
but okay. So sorry to stop you, but
mm,
for the listener's sake, but a lot of people would have this question of how would you have corrected your dog if your dog had gotten out of control, right? Because in your aspect of
yeah.
controlling your dog, I'm sure there's a way of
It was very
discipline.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think with regards to distance, so the dogs learn that at the start in a close range, I would be able to correct you. Slightly further away, I would still be able to correct you. And if you're further away, I would eventually come to you and correct you. So mind you, there's very little understanding in my head about timeliness in dog training. So if my dog pooped on my shoes, 3 hours later, I will still correct my dog. Right? Today, I know that is completely stupid and completely useless, right? But back then, um, that was the only way that I knew. Now, inspired by some people that I met along the way in the last couple of years.
Oh, that's one you can name.
So if you had listened to the first episode, after that moment where Barros, got me pissing in my pants,
who's the guy?
he's my number one poison master, Brandon. So I met Brandon and Barros, and if you had heard the confrontation in the last episode, if you haven't, please tune in. But I started to realize that, hey, there is really a different way to coexist with a dog, and dogs' ability to learn is far beyond what I thought was possible. And that's really, and I think if nothing else, in my short little session here, I want to really highlight that um, there is a lot we can draw out from classical conditioning and operant conditioning, and I think not to be confused with being too negative or too positive, um, in the English sense of the word, being positive being happy and negative being sad. You need. I started looking at the four quadrants of operant conditioning in what it's meant to be, which is positive is to add, negative is to remove, and there's only reinforcement where you make the dog situation better, or punishment where you make the dog situation worse. So I didn't know that I was operating purely in a positive punishment quadrant, where um, I told the dog only when it did something wrong, by adding in something uncomfortable like a pop or a correction, and it's a punishment to tell the dog not to do it again. I completely disregarded the other three quadrants. Um, and now, even though I'm using only probably 3 out of the 4 quadrants, because there's one that's a bit high level, but I realized that having a balanced approach on all 4 quadrants actually gave me a far better relationship with my dog.
Yeah, so I mean, I've also encountered a few professional trainers as well who are purely in positive training.
Yeah.
But then the question, like if you wanted to ask them in an example of if your dog suddenly chased a cat, for instance, how would you correct that? Right?
I mean, yeah, it's quite
It's something to think about,
Yeah.
because how are you going to do it with a positive training system?
That's true.
So, as I was looking into the concept of the true concept of operant conditioning and the 4 quadrants around it, then I realized that the act of a dog chasing a cat is problematic because it is inherently self-rewarding. So, disregarding the owner, the dog getting this high on chasing is actually a positive reinforcement, because the dog is saying positive because I'm adding on thrill, and every time I chase that squirrel, that cat moves. So me being the dog moving forward creates a motion of that cat or that squirrel moving
positive,
forward,
yeah.
and it feels good for me because it triggers this
Right.
prey drive, right? And so if you are operating purely on positive reinforcement, right, then that dog is going to be chasing that squirrel forever and a day until you never see that dog again. So I think to conclude my side of the story, I started off my journey in dog ownership, in dog training, like many other Malaysians, where I operated purely on one quadrant, which is positive punishment, and people in Malaysia will call that negative training or whatnot. But actually, in definition, it's positive punishment. And I realized over time, and it took me a long time, 9 years, um, to figure out that actually there is a lot more to dog training, and I'm a convert, so I'm now working on trying to better understand this system and making sure that I'm using all four quadrants equally, or at least when it's required, to get a more balanced approach. And my dog gets a lot more clarity on what I want and what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
So that's my journey in conversion from pet ownership
Yeah,
to
then I think we can move on to the show part.
Yeah.
The show training, where Leanne would elaborate a little bit more on it. Yeah.
So since young, like I am very very similar to
James.
James here. Sorry,
No
my
problem.
brain is not
It's our
working
second
anymore.
episode. We are on week 2, so it's forgiven.
You had
Week 3 will be a different story.
Sorry, my brain wasn't working. But yes,
But many Malaysians, I think.
Yeah,
I
many
would say
Malaysians.
many Malaysians.
I think these are the top two training. I would say different types of training that people would understand in Malaysia is between home
Yes,
ownership
yes.
and show line,
Yes.
right? So these are the top two things that is more publicized in Malaysia, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But online nowadays is working line is getting more and more popular. It's actually a lot more popular. But yeah, coming back to the topic where
How do you get into it? Why
Yeah.
do you like it?
it's a bit like how do I but since like just now when I said since when I was a kid, I actually train my dog in a way where I shout at the dog.
Yeah.
It's like for me to say it now is actually like it's not it's very bad. Like like feels like as if I just abused the dog when I was young, but that's how I thought that's the correct way of teaching
Right.
a dog.
Right,
You shout at the dog is scared of you. That's when they
I keep my dog. I'm just gonna put it out there. I keep my dog.
Yeah, by the way, his name is James. So you want to find him? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's bald.
You won't miss me.
He's got tattoos on his arms. So.
And you'll see me walking down the street kicking my dog.
But yeah, then after that, when I went to the UK, then I have a friend that has a Labrador. She came to Malaysia and she saw how, that time I only had Fifi.
Right.
Lisha passed away, I only had Fifi, and then she saw that, Fifi is always in her little house, her little cage, we, let's say in a week, we only walk her for like 3 times a week together. Then the rest of the time we just like open the gate wide, like
Yeah.
just keep it wide open, and then she just runs out,
Right.
do her thing, comes back home. But some people actually get shocked, like, oh, your dog knows how to come home, she's very smart, that kind of thing. But then this friend, she did like tell me in her way, if I've done it in the UK, it's not acceptable. In the UK, this would be known as what? Animal abuse.
and it's quite interesting because like I think in some Scandinavian countries like Sweden, even keeping a dog in a crate is deeply frowned upon.
Yeah.
And it's unimaginable for us because to me, shit, I need to put my dog in a crate
Yeah.
because otherwise my dog would drive me nuts.
Yeah. I think it's like it's just the way how we have been doing it. Like the way how we train dogs right now is like, oh, we have done it this way, so we are just doing it this way.
Correct.
Yeah. So then obviously she gave me a lot of nagging.
Yep.
Then I realized that
Reminders.
Yeah. Yes, reminders. Then like she like basically made me started thinking, oh, is this wrong? Like what I'm doing here is wrong, that kind of thing. Then that was like a year, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Then I started thinking before I even got Leah. I started thinking, oh, it's what I've been doing with Fifi. Then I only started focusing on Fifi and trying to like make things good with her, and then after that, then I just got confident that I can maybe own another dog. Then that's when Leah came into the picture, and
And at that time, you already knew about show
no, 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 no,
or
no, no,
not
no,
yet?
no, no.
Okay.
I only watch the videos of how to show a dog or how, and also videos of the working line ones, but I'm not like a professional.
Right.
Yeah. So then when I found Leah, it was from this Doberman breeder, and like in the first episode, the whole journey how I got Leah. Then I've also been following his Facebook, how, and then started looking. That's when I started looking more into showing, more into training, and more into like, uh, positive behavior kind of training. That's probably that's what we've been talking about just now. Yeah. Let's say, I don't know. For show.
Yeah, like because I think a lot of people don't understand there is training in show.
Yeah.
Right? For me,
I was
for me,
wondering.
including me,
Oh, really?
like I didn't know that there is a training way for showing a dog. Like for me, it's just walking my dog, going around in circles, and letting my dog stand. That was literally what I thought it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, with showing is like, let's say for stacking, it's
Yeah.
you need to.
I think
the
also it
dog-
comes down to
yeah.
the different type of breeds that
Yes.
they have to particularly see. Like in your case, it's a working group dog,
Yeah.
a working breed, so they have certain characters that they want to see in your breed, particularly. Like I know in the German Shepherd show that majority of them have a whole entire Bible of how you should show your dog, because they have different types of grading systems,
Yeah.
from puppy all the way to adult, and the championship titles that they can win from being from the same kennel, from the same lineage, how they win the title because of what they portray from that gene, particular gene. And I know German Shepherd is one of the highest levels of showing because it's such a long history of it.
Yeah.
But in Malaysia, we only have a Malaysian Kennel Association that we do all breeds and stuff like that. So I know you recently started in
Yes.
August. So far, what have you been able to learn from your experience? I know training your dog. You of course you have a mentor,
Yeah.
which I think everyone should have.
Yeah. Everyone should have.
When training a dog. Um, yeah. So what did you learn during that time from August till now?
So when I got Leah, the breeder was very helpful. The breeder actually helped me along the way, because like jumping from a golden retriever owner, like a stray dog owner, a mini pincher owner, to a Doberman is it's not huge. It's not a huge step, but it's a very different way. It's a very different dog. So, like, for me to handle the Doberman, yes, I'm very lucky in that sense. I have my mentor, which is also my breeder, to guide me, because he has won a lot of
I think it's also important because you have your own breeder who bred your dog, knowing the genes of your dog and what it can and cannot do in terms of limitations.
Yeah.
Right. And if a certain character of your dog is shown from his previous litters or his dogs, that your dog's parents or whatnot, he would know how to bring that particular trait out of your dog. I think that's also something very interesting to see and know from a particular breeder.
Yeah. And then, like, so since then, he basically taught me how to stack my dog first. Then stacking Leah was actually easier than I thought, because they started her very young. Yeah, they wanted to. It was between her and her sister, so they wasn't sure which one to keep.
Right.
They wanted to keep both.
Right.
Then I came along and asked like,
Yeah.
can I have
Yeah,
one of the,
yeah.
the puppy? And then he's like, okay. Then they then chose Leah for me, and they kept the sister. But along the way, they did started her off very very young, like I think most likely like 1 month or even like less than. Yeah.
What's the training method like? Do you reward the dog when the dog is in a right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you basically have a bait. We call it a bait. So you need to hold it with one hand. So the dog's head is where the bait is. Then you try to adjust the. But when you first started off, you might need to have like a rope around the neck. So it's behind the skull, behind the ears, where the chin, like the jaw is. Then you hold it right there. So the dog needs to stand straight, chest up, legs front leg straight, and also the back leg, the rear thigh has to be aligned with the front of the paws. Yeah. Then if the dog doesn't stand straight, you then need to adjust the bait for the dog to push the front legs forward. Yeah, and then try to like lift the head up so it stands very proudly. Yeah. So that is how we're supposed to, show our dogs. But also you have like Dobermans that you also need to have a good Doberman. You don't like, let's say if the Doberman's
But your definition of good is
the character, like the whole like
face structure.
The whole structure. Like even let's say the top of the head and the muzzle has to be parallel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, even the paws and everything. Even like let's say the paws, and then there's like between the elbow there's this like slant. It needs to be slanted, and then the paws has to be how do you call them? The black part
The
can't be
pads have
fully
to be
down.
closed.
Yeah,
Okay.
can't be fully down.
Right.
It has to be like up.
Or like a tiptoe sort of look.
Yes.
Right.
Then tail obviously has to be up.
But that is not a trainable trait. That is a breed, like what your dog already has, or can you train that?
That's a tricky question, I think.
Yeah.
But for me, that's a trainable one.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to build the confidence in
Right,
that
right.
dog. So, like for Leah, until now, I'm still trying to like. She already has a very nice posture. I don't even need to like she can even randomly just stand there in a very nice posture. It's just that her chest and her head is something I have to still work on to like try to push it. Look proud, that kind of thing. Because currently she's like always bending down, looking at me, like, am I doing this correctly or not? Yeah. Apart from that, there is pacing around the ring. So pacing around the ring, that one with Leah is a bit tricky. Yeah, because
So what we in the previous episode we called this galloping.
yes,
right?
galloping. Yeah. So for her to gallop, so basically it's the front leg and the back leg opposite
Right.
needs. Yeah. How like there's a few ways of walking, and then there is one way that we call it the lazy way. It's when your front leg and your back leg is moving together. It's called pacing, and you don't want that because that is definitely not what the judges are looking for. Yeah. So for that, for me, I find it difficult to train her to gallop.
Is it a factor of the speed, like going slower, going faster?
Yeah, for me, I have to jog with her. I cannot walk with her. I can't even do fast walk. I have to jog. Even sometimes when I jog, it has to be a bit faster because if not, then she'll do the lazy walk with me.
She'll start pacing.
Yeah, she'll start pacing.
Okay.
So for me, I always have to jog with her, but it has to start slow, bit by bit. So as soon as I see her, this is what the breeder told me. Like as soon as I see her pacing, I should stop, correct her, and then try again, and then until she starts galloping, then that's when I treat her. That kind of thing.
So you reward on the galloping and you correct on the pacing.
Yes.
Okay.
But at the moment, I'm still trying to work on that. Sometimes she does it correctly. Sometimes she just completely just didn't want to do it. Yeah. But apart from that, that's about it.
And how often, I mean, if you know someone is aspiring to show their dog and they want to train the dog for show, how often should someone train, or how often do you train
For Leah, I train every day.
every
I
day?
have to every day, but only 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Okay.
You don't need long for show dogs. Apart from that, I only like, let's say just doing like no stacking, and also like just galloping around 5 minutes. Then the rest are just like obedience training, like just sit, whatever, like down, like the pet training. But yeah, it's more like a fun way, like teach how to say hi, roll over, that kind of thing.
One thing I see show dogs do, which I've struggled with on my particular dog, is measuring the height, because every time I bring out the tape, one dog tries to chew it, the other dog thinks that it's going to kill it, so the tape is going to kill him. So one is afraid and one wants to kill it. So at what point do show dog trainers start to introduce things like, checking of the teeth, opening of the mouth, measuring of the height, the width, and things like that?
Yeah, actually you have to do it like since puppyhood.
Okay.
So like for Leah, I also have to like check, try to put my hand, even just putting my whole hand into her mouth, she is still trying to get used to it. She sometimes just move away, she doesn't want it. But I have to like make sure she's okay with it. Like now she's fine with me like just putting my hand in her mouth, or like pause, just lifting it up, that kind of thing, like just check it, check the ear, lifting the ear up. But you have to start, like when I started checking her mouth, she didn't want to open her mouth at all.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, she didn't want to. She tried to run away. So
And in Malaysia, judges will go through detailed checking.
yes,
Oh, for
yes,
sure,
yes.
for sure. I think
Yes.
in any competitions, I think they would. I've seen in MKAs and stuff.
Yeah.
So
The big debate in the Rottweiler world is that they should be using this skull to muzzle ratio thing to check, because they've been, over the years, there've been a shortening of the Rottweiler's snout. And do they have like a, well, in the Rottweiler world they call it the ADRK, head ruler, but I don't know in Doberman world whether
That one I've not heard of it before. I've only heard of it like like the skull and the muzzle, the top of the muzzle has to be parallel. So it's one line and another line.
symmetrical.
Yeah, it has to be parallel.
And there's no device or
no, I've never, even when I watch the show, I've never watched that. I've never seen them doing that before.
Yeah. So
It's
they
just,
don't do it in Malaysia for Rottweilers, and it's a problem. Well, for me it's a problem, because the snout keeps getting shorter, and they're still winning the titles.
Yes. Yeah. I also saw like Rottweilers in that
Yeah, they call
sense.
them
Yeah.
Parkweilers. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but even like for show, let's say teeth, that's when I just learned it like a few weeks back. So the teeth of the, let's say, for any show dogs, I think, the front teeth and the back teeth has to be, like the front teeth has to be in front, obviously. Like the top jaw, the top teeth has to be in front of the bottom teeth. But it cannot be too far out.
What do they call this? They call this underbite.
Yes.
No, this is a Caesar.
Yes.
So the correct one is a Caesar. If it goes too far, it's over.
Yeah.
And then if the bottom, like a bulldog, is got an underbite.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if Working Line does that as well.
No.
Rottweilers,
We're not on the beauty side of it.
Evidently.
Our dogs can be as ugly as possible. Like I really thought my dog was a mutt. So
No, but in the Rottweilers they do check, because the logic on the working side is that if they don't have a Caesar bite, they won't be able to grip as hard. So if they've got an underbite and you're pulling the dog,
I think it's because of the working. Because you're showing a working dog, it has to portray a working character or whatever the breed is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for Doberman, like for the show line.
I think for all.
Yeah. If it's not Caesar, then it's you're basically disqualified, like straight away. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you see, even show dogs have to go through a certain type of training, which not many people know. Everyone's thinking, oh, it's beautiful,
You
blah
have to
blah
just
blah.
groom
But they don't know.
Yeah. They thought just groom it, blow dry it, cut the nails. That's it.
So on the sport spectrum and the work spectrum, what let's start with what was your journey in terms of training a dog in Malaysia, and also um, how has it evolved for you?
On my end, Baros and Kira, we are definitely very fortunate because I would say there aren't any trainers, I would say, in Asia who have a world standard in terms of the competition, right? So I'm very lucky to have my trainer mentor me throughout my journey, and because he's been in the game for about more than 20 years, competed in world championships, I think it was very important not only to us as team members but for the sport as well. So if we look at IPO, which is what it was formerly known as, to what it is now called IGP, which is the International Working Dog Examination. In Malaysia, it has definitely seen its ups and downs. At the beginning, of course, there was only my trainer's group of friends and team back then before I even started, trying to get into the game in that sense. They weren't trainers, so what they were able to do was to fly over to Europe and learn on the job, right, on the spot, especially. So I think for them it was definitely a very, very difficult journey, but because of their experiences, we are very lucky. As in, I would say we are the second generation. We are very lucky to have him experience it
Yeah.
and pass it down to us,
Yeah.
right? So that is something that we can always be forever grateful for. In terms of the involvement, because of that, more and more different groups started to join, right, and started to go out of the country, going into world championships to compete, and starting their own clubs in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, there's 2 clubs that organizes IGP events, right?
Oh, just two.
Yeah, just 2 for now. I think that we know of, right? It's not a very big sport, I would say. So each time one club organizes, we try to support each event that they try to organize. So try to keep the sport alive,
Yes.
which I think is very important.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another story of competitions. But on my side, how I began was learning from my mentor a proper system, which, because my sport has 3 phases, which consists of tracking, obedience, and protection. Why I chose this sport was because it utilizes all the senses of the dog,
Yeah.
right? From nose, sniffing, stamina, throughout to obedience, throughout to protection, using their mouth and biting and all that stuff to be able to be controlled.
Yeah.
I think it's an important aspect and trait of a working dog,
Yeah.
right? So when I started training, it was, how I like to put it is, it's a puzzle, right? If we look at a big piece of puzzle, you only see the end picture, what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that, right? So let's imagine it's a art of an animal or whatever, or a house that you can think of. So each puzzle for us in the working world represents a certain behavior,
Mhm.
right? So for example, I ask you, in retrieve, you know retrieve, right? I throw a dumbbell, my dog picks it up, comes back to me.
Yeah.
For you as a layman person, you may only see that as one behavior. But if I did not mention the puzzle side of it, how many behaviors would you have thought?
So you basically have retrieving.
Yeah, right.
So listening,
Whatever,
reacting,
doesn't matter.
2, 3.
Okay, so
traits.
for you as a normal person who doesn't train in sport or
Yeah.
whatever, for you that picture of retrieving that puzzle is only 2 to 3
Yeah.
behaviors that you see. So you would only use 3 pieces of puzzle to form that picture.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, correct.
So in my case, it would be between 7 to 8 behaviors, right? Which means 7 different puzzles.
Okay.
So for me, the first puzzle of training a retrieve would be number 1 is to be able to bite the dumbbell.
Okay.
That is a behavior.
Yes.
By just biting the dumbbell is one piece of puzzle. Number 2, the second puzzle that I need to train is for him to sit in front of me, right? That is also another behavior I need to train. So 2 pieces of puzzle gone. Third behavior, which is another puzzle, where him biting it and coming back to me, right? So with the first 2 puzzles, I've already created a picture for him that we call back chaining. I teach him in certain exercises. I would teach him the end behavior all up to the end, to the beginning. So he's seen the 2 behaviors, right? He understands how to bite it. He understands he needs to sit in front of me. Now the next behavior is for him to come back, to retrieve the dumbbell and come back to me. That would be third behavior. So then coming down to the fourth behavior, I would then sit him on my side, on my left, right? Just sitting him down and throw the dumbbell without him moving. Right? Then that's the fourth behavior.
Yeah.
Fifth behavior would be him running to it with speed. Right? Because we
Okay.
judged on speed as well. Right? You won't like to see a dog just walking to
Yeah.
the dumbbell, picking it up and walking back to you. You don't want to see that.
Yes.
So with the 5 behaviors gone, he has to already start to picture, okay, from the first, I already know how to bite it. Second, I know how to pick it up and sit in front of you. Third, I need to go and pick it up and come back to you. Now, I'm sitting down next to you and you're throwing the dumbbell, but I cannot move. Right?
Yes.
Going on to the 6th, with speed, picking it up, coming back. I need him to be fast. Right? So that behavior is all done separately. Right? I train each puzzle outside of the whole entire picture. Right?
Yeah.
7, releasing the dumbbell.
Yep.
Right? 8th behavior, returning into position. Right? So for that, there's already 8 behaviors, 8 different puzzles that we form to create that one picture that my dog must know, which is a very detailed form of training, which is why I like IPO or IGP. Because in each different phase, there's so many behaviors that we have to look out for. Right? I only just mentioned retrieve.
Yeah.
So for me to do retrieve, imagine how long that's going to take. But it's not about how many hours I train that behavior. I talk about the quality of training. My training can be done in 15 minutes, but he understands. The next time he does it, he would crave to do it. He would really want to do it even more because he had fun.
Yeah.
So I never end on a bad note. I always end it when he understands. He's quite clear. He at least understands a little bit of what I want to do in order for me to move to the next stage.
Yes.
Right? So then there's protection, where there's several behaviors that we also have to do. And this is where my sport is indeed a team sport. So without the team, there's no way we can train. Because I believe, okay, certain behaviors, certain things like sit and that's easy, we can do that alone.
Yeah.
But when we talk about details of the training, there's definitely a team behind it. So not many people would see what we go through as dog athletes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? You never see the hard workmanship gone through to be able to achieve what we've achieved in a certain sense. Right? I'm not saying I'm the best, I'm not bragging at any point, but if you were an athlete like even a footballer or a basketballer or ice skater, you still need someone behind you to be able to see you strive and achieve what you want to achieve. Which I think for me, as simple as it sounds, I just wanted to compete.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make friends and be able to enjoy the sport with my dog and some friends.
Yeah.
That was why I started IPO or IGP. So because of all these different types of behaviors, it's gotten to a point that my dog is capable of doing things differently to home ownership dogs and stuff like that, which I feel all the behaviors that we've done is adaptable and adoptable by other breeds as well. Mongrels,
Yeah.
poodles, Shih Tzus, they can do it for sure because of the system, right? We create a drive and a motivation that I think these dogs have yet to see without this system. So with this system, they see it a lot more, right? So this is one of the reasons.
So I'm new to the sport, but what I very quickly learned is that the system that we use to drive our dogs up and get them really high is actually heavily in conflict with a pet owner trying to have a calm dog at home.
Oh yes,
Who's not gonna
I
rip
think
up
so.
my
Yeah.
car and
I
rip
think so.
apart.
I think so. But for me, like I think in the previous episode we mentioned about how we saw dogs being happy,
Yeah.
right? So in my case, when I see my dog happy, it's not because he's super active or he's super high. It's that he is happy to please, right? In the sense of when I give a command, he wants to do it fast. Why? Because he knows there's a reward coming, right? So in that sense, the reward is something that they always want. Even if I didn't show him the reward at the beginning, they would always know and trust. I think here's the word. The key word is trust and bond. That my dog is capable of doing whatever I tell him to do.
So I mean, so say if I was a pet owner, no intention to compete um, in anything. I just want to come home and my dog leaves my house as it is and leave my cars as it is, right? So is there an overlap? So there will be some things that we don't want to teach a non-working dog, for example, on the protection aspect, things like that. But surely there are some things that you think even pet owners can adopt, a part of the system that pet owners can adopt.
Oh, for sure. I think in the aspect of obedience training, a lot of dogs that I see or have owned previously as well. I like to call this the YouTube style training, very very old school. We don't know what we're doing. No one to correct us, right? When we tell our dogs to sit back then, it would take forever for them. Sit. Then the owner's voice gets louder and louder and louder, and frustration comes in, and the dog still doesn't want to sit.
No, I kick my dog after
Yeah. So again, that's James. He's bald and he's got a tattoo. I'll pass over the address.
You can see it, not sitting down. There's going to be a roundhouse coming your way.
So James's background is Muay Thai, by the way. So with those dogs that we previously owned, they didn't want to do it. Then what comes next is the plastic bag sound comes out,
Oh, yes,
right? Then
yes,
the
yes,
food,
yes.
mom, come, here, come sit. Still, you're showing the jackpot, and your dog doesn't want to do it. Then, of course, there's an issue in obedience at home. So, how our system can be adopted is the dog is able to trust you. That even you don't show him, he understands by the given command, and him doing it with pleasure and speed, he gets the reward. So this was something that I think a lot of homeowners can adopt.
Let's say for working night, how long do you train your dog?
On an average day, I don't train long. I really train between 15 to 20 minutes, but it has to be a quality training, right? So if I don't get what I get or what I want, I would get him to try to achieve at the bare minimum, and then I will stop it at a good note to practice maybe in the following evening or the next day.
So like for example, let's say if your dog sit beside you, right? Sit, like how let's say obedience training, the dog has to sit beside you. The chest is somewhere aligned with your
knees,
your knees, Then if they sit parallel to you, like perfectly fine, then you're gonna end just like
Correct. I'll just end at a good note with a very good reward. So I like to call it as like a jackpot in that sense. But in layman terms, how I would share for people to understand the reward system is you imagine yourself, you're an ATM machine. Yeah. So as an ATM machine, you would never go around chasing the card holder spitting out money.
Yeah.
You would never do that. As an ATM machine, it doesn't move, right? But as the ATM card holder, when I want the money, what do I have to do? Insert the card, put the pin,
Yeah.
and input whatever amount I want. That's the behavior of the dog.
Yeah.
Then when he gets the correct number, the money comes out.
Yeah.
Right? So in that sense, is if you do the right behavior, money is rewarded. Right? So I would reward based on how well he's done. I would reward as many kibbles or dog food or whatever in the behavior that I'm training at.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
One last final question before we close out this episode. You know, on the topic of your training journey and on the topic of evolution, evolution of your desires and your goals, how did that change over time? Like,
No, I've always wanted to have a big final goal, which was to compete in the World Championships. But to get there is not as easy as one would think, right? I think, oh yeah, although Malaysia doesn't have many representatives,
Yes.
but the fact of I'm not going there to embarrass myself.
Yeah.
That's for sure,
That's good.
right? So we have to be able to train with the right people, the right team, the right team members, to be able to bring us there, which is very important for any sport, right? I mean, I don't want to name any bad sports clubs or whatever, but if you put this in retrospect of explaining it, would you rather train with Barcelona to learn football, or would you rather train with Selangor FC?
hey, no, point
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So goals have always been the same from day one.
Yes, to compete in high levels.
Mm.
Yeah. But we never know when I'll get there. I may get there with Barros, I may not. So that is the end goal. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you everyone for listening. Leanne, where
Yes.
can listeners find you?
You can find me on the debatable Instagram account. It's TheDoberbae.
And Brandon?
Myself, Barros von der Tigerland, BarosVonderTigerland.
And if you want to see posts on Rottweilers, jump on to Instagram and you can find me on Bullies and Rotties, Bullies and Rotties, Rotties. Thank you everyone. That wraps
Thank
up
you.
Thank you.
episode 2.